CR, which is so segment terminator, which is indicated or which is represented with CR, which is called as carriage return. This indicates the end of the segment. So at the end of every sentence within English language, we have full stop, right? So full stop represents end of the sentence. In the same way, this carriage return represents the end of the segment. Then every segment has many fields, and all of these fields are separated with the help of a symbol called as pipe. So this symbol that you're seeing is called as pipe, and this is used to separate one field from another. Then we have third symbol, which is called as component separator. So component separator is indicated with the help of a caret symbol. So you can see here that we have caret. So as long as there is no division in the field, you will not see this particular component value. But if a field is further divided into components, then each component is separated with the help of this symbol called as caret. And you also have other three elements or the three values or representations of the or symbols that you use in the HL7 message. Ampersand is used to separate two components. Tilde is used to represent repetitive data. Backward slash is used to represent escape of certain data. So we'll talk about them on the fly when we actually get to see the HL7 message. As of now, the first two things, specifically the pipe and the caret symbol, are very, very important. So let us go ahead and look at the HL7 message and understand how the structure is. We'll just go through one of the segments and understand what is this field separator, what is this component separator and all. So this is how an HL7 message will look like. So yesterday we did halt here. We did take a look at this slide and we understood that every HL7 message comprises of many segments, right? It may be 2 segments, 5 segments, 10 segments, 20 segments. So there is no limit on how many segments you can have, but every HL7 message has segments. And each segment is at the end will have a carriage return. All right. So in this example, we are not seeing that because carriage return is a non-visible symbol. I will show that up on Notepad++ once we go ahead and paste and take a look at the example. But there is a end carriage return for every segment that we are going to read. And then each segment has a name which starts with a 3-letter acronym. Okay, as you can see, we have 5 segments here. Every segment has a 3-letter acronym beginning. And this 3-letter acronym will tell you what is the name of that particular HL7 message. Sorry, that particular segment, not HL7 message. These 3 acronyms will tell you what is the name of that segment. And by looking at the name of the segment, you will get to know or you will understand what is the data that is going to be sent in that specific segment. For example, if you see this PID, PID means patient identification information. So patient identity related data is basically transacted in PID segment. So what kind of data it can have? It can have patient name, gender, date of birth, all of those details, right? And other stuff like phone number, telephone number, or mobile number, or address, and a lot of other stuff of the patient. All of these can be sent over in PID segment. Okay, so knowing the name of the segments and the full form of that particular segment will help us to clearly understand what kind of data that can be transacted in PV in that particular segment. Okay, along with that, we also have a message segment here. MSH stands for message segment header. So message segment header is nothing but the segment that would include few basic header related information like when the message got generated, what kind of message you are dealing with, and whether it's a development message or a test message or a production message. So all of these kinds of data elements are present within a message segment. We are going to take a look at each segment in a deeper manner and understand what are the fields in the upcoming sessions. So we'll be we'll be taking a deeper dive into each of these segments and all the required segments, not just these, the ones that you're seeing here, all the required segments that are there for each of the message types. We'll have a look at them. Okay, but for now, we are just trying to understand that this is the structure of an HL7 message. Okay, and whenever you get an HL7 message, how do you go ahead and read it? How do you go ahead and navigate through the HL7 message? That's what we are going to see next. So I'll just copy this example to a notepad so that we can go ahead and read it there. Okay. So I pasted the HL7 message here, and let me change the language to JavaScript. I am changing the language to JavaScript here. It doesn't mean that this is JavaScript. This is just a normal text, or it is nothing. It has nothing to do with JavaScripting. The only reason I select that language in Notepad++ is it highlights the delimiters very nicely, and it will clearly show you the data in a good format. Uh, Basically, it will beautify the code. That's the reason I just added it here. Okay, as I just set the language as JavaScript. Okay, so if you want to see all the hidden characters, then you can just go ahead and click on this symbol, and you can see that at the end of each segment there is something called as CR. LF is not mandatory. Here we have LF because we have added a new line, but apparently at the end of every segment you will have a CR, which is carriage return, and that will tell us that this is the end of the segment. Okay. And after that, along with carry return, you also have uh, the segment names are present. And whenever we want to navigate through the HL7 message, how do I go ahead and do that? So you have to call out the segment name. That is the first thing that we have to do. Okay. Next, every segment is divided into fields, right? So here we can see that we have these pipes. How are fields separated from each other? Fields are separated from each other with the help of a pipe symbol. So you can see that there is one pipe beginning here, and then you have a pipe here, and then you have a pipe here, and here, and here, and so on. Whatever is held between two pipes, that is called as a field. So this will be one field, this will be the second field, this will be the third field, fourth field, fifth field, and so on. So in that way, every segment will have many number of fields. Okay. Who will determine how many number of fields can have? That is a standard that is defined as per the HL7 specification, HL7 organization specification. Okay. For example, in PID segment, you have 40 fields. So that is divided by HL7 organization or HL7 specifications. Okay. That's point number one. Second, every field that you see here has a number associated with it. It will be a sequence number right beginning from the first field of the segment. Okay, we call it as field positioning. Okay, so this is field number one. So let me remove that set ID from there because you may get confused with that number. So as of now, we'll put it as blank. So this is field number one. This is field number two. This is field number three, field number four, field number five, field number six, field number seven, and so on. Right? So every HL7 message has a segment called PID because we are talking about the data that belongs to a patient. So PID will always be there 99% of the times. Uh, Next, once the PID segment is available there, all the segments are divided into fields. Same is the case with PID, and each field will have a number called as field positioning. And every position has a predefined uh, predefined element or predefined uh, data element that goes into that particular field. For example, here in patient ID, PID 5 is dedicated for patient name. So 5 is always patient name. Okay. So who says that? Again, HL7 organization has defined these specifications and released it. All that we have to do is refer to them and follow it. Okay. So this is field number 1, field number 2, field number 3, 4, and 5. Okay. And then you have date of birth. So that is present in PID 7. PID.7 is always date of birth. PID 8 is always gender. Okay. So if you know HL7 message and if you understand HL7 message, then it is not a very big deal for you to interpret the data that is being sent to you. Right now that you know what is PID5, as soon as you look at an HL7 message, you will read through the fields and understand which field has the patient name information. Right? So those are that is how we call the fields. So once you define the field, then the field may be further divided into components depending
I,
on the data that you're dealing with.
I
Okay.
have one question.
Hey Mohit, yeah.
So, like in PID, we have all the information related to patient, but as I can understand, because of HIPAA, all the information should be encrypted.
Hmm.
So, why this information is not encrypted here, and anyone who has access of this file can easily read this file?
Yes, they can. So when you say encryption, so when the data is traveling through your system, HL7 message gets generated only in a situation where you have to transact data from one system to another, right? And when you're transacting data, depending on the communication methodology, you will be encrypting the data. For example, if you are sending the data through TCP/IP, then you will be encrypting the data through your VPN if you have VPN. And without VPN, we don't implement HL7 interfaces. So data encryption will be taken care at that point, not in the HL7 message individually. Overall, the message will be masked and encrypted, and then it will be sent over to the destination.
So you mean to say like these files will never be accessible by any person and it will be a only system to system interaction?
No, people who have, so this is not a file. I mean, depending on the interface model, it may be a file or it may be sent through TCP/IP. If it is a file, then only authorized persons who have access to that folder will be able to take a look at the data. Okay, not everyone will have access to that particular folder. Let's say you have an interface developer who is working on the interface implementation, picking the files or generating HL7 messages and dropping them into a folder. So as per HIPAA, only the people who are authorized to go ahead and work on that particular interface will have access to that folder. Rest all the entire team, even if there is a huge team, rest of the entire team will not have access to that folder. And people who have access, yes, they will be able to read the file.
Okay, got it.
Yeah. Okay. And in case if you want to go further and encrypt the data as well, you can do that too through integration engines where you can encrypt the file and put it as password protected. Or when you're saving the data to the database, you can encrypt the data that you are going to write to the database as well, so that you can see the data only in the integration engine. So you can go to that level too. But in general practice, if the data is being returned to the folder, usually that folder access is given only to specified personals, not everyone. So, yeah, Mohit, you have a follow-up question?
No, I put. Thank you.
Okay, all right. So the data that we are seeing here in PID, so we understood that every segment is divided into fields, and fields have field positioning, and these field positioning will tell you which data set or which data element is present in which field number. So PID 5, now we saw that it is always the patient name, PID 7 is date of birth, PID 8 is gender, right? So if you want to navigate through the HL7 message, you call out the segment name and you call out the field number. And that will help you to understand what kind of data element is present or will be transacted in that particular field number. This is the expectation from anyone. So let's say now I am generating an HL7 message and sending it over to the other person or sending it over to the destination system. Then destination is supposed to burden no HL7 message, and it is uh, it is by default an understanding that they will know where do we have patient name, where do we have patient date of birth, where do we have gender and all. Okay. Next, at times the segment or this field itself may be divided into components, and this is not a compulsion. Few fields may be divided into components, few fields may not be divided into components. Who will determine that? That is dependent on data type of that particular field, which is a different topic altogether. For now, we'll take a look at what happens if a field is divided into components further. Okay. For example, if you look at patient's date of birth, it is a one single field. So there was no need of breaking it down into different components. So HL7 organization has doesn't didn't do that. And if you look at the gender values, it is also one single field. And there was no need for breaking it down. So it's just one single field. But if you look at name, it is further broken down into components. So name is huge. It may contain first name, it may contain last name, middle initial, prefix, suffix. So there are many things which will be part of your name, right? So as we can see here, the name is further divided into separate components, and each of these components are separated with the help of this symbol called as caret. Okay. And each of these components again have their own positioning. Same like the field positioning that we spoke about. Very similar to that, you have component positioning. So this is component number 1. This is component number 2, number 3, 4, 5, 6, and so on. Okay. So when I want to specifically talk about this second component, then I would call out that field as PID.5.2. Okay. And these placeholders are standard again. So PID.5.2 is always patient's first name. Okay. And if you talk about PID.5.1, which is nothing but this field, is patient's last name. Okay. And the third component is for middle initial, fourth is for suffix, fifth is for prefix. And there are many more components within patient name. There are overall of 15 components that will be present in the patient name field. Okay, as I said, who will determine how many number of components we'll have? That is purely dependent on the data type that we are dealing with. So that is a later topic that we are going to explore. But for now, we just need to understand that few fields can be divided into components. If they are divided, then this is the way how we navigate through those particular fields. Okay, so every HL7 message is divided into segments. Segments are divided into fields. Fields are separated with the help of pipe. So whatever is held between two fields is called as, whatever is held between two pipes is called as a field. Every field has its own field number or field positioning or field sequence. And it begins from 1 and then continue with 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and so on. And these fields may at times be divided into components, and each component again has its own component positioning. They are called as component number 1, component number 2, component number 3. And these are fixed placeholders. These field placeholders don't change. That is what the standard is all about, right? Yesterday I gave you an example that we have a rack, and in the first shelf, first compartment is always dedicated for t-shirts. In our house, there is a dedicated place for putting up the keys and so on, right? So these are dedicated placeholders. Similarly, these data elements that you're seeing in PID 5 as patient name, PID 7 as date of birth, PID 8 as gender, these are dedicated placeholders, right? So HL7 entire structure will have this kind of dedicated placeholders. All that we need to know is refer to the specification, understand which field is present in which data is present in which field number, and just follow that specification that is provided by HL7 organization for it to us. Okay. So any questions so far? Reading the HL7 message, understanding fields, understanding components.
NK1 next of kin, right?
Right, correct.
So could you tell what does it mean? Could you tell that? Because PID, EVN, PV1, I know that.
Mm-hmm.
Next of not aware. Tell
Yeah.
me that.
Next of kin is like your emergency contact information or some additional patient information, additional patient's relatives information. So it can be a guardian, it can be a brother, it can be a friend, anyone who takes the responsibility on your behalf when you are admitted to the hospital, right? They are the ones who will be in a position of taking a decision where you are on behalf of you if you are not in a position of taking any decision. So they are called as next of kins. So their information will be transacted in NK1.
Okay. And internal patient ID, internal ID, external ID is there, right? In
Mm-hmm.
that,
Mm-hmm.
generally, what will be considered as a patient ID in that case, MRN? What
Mm-hmm.
should be what will be considered the field actually? Internal ID or external ID? Actually,
So there
I'm
are
not.
so per the specification version, this changed from what you see in 2.3, 2.5, 2.7.
Yes.
Okay. So we'll talk more about this when we explore the message segment and fields in our upcoming sessions. We are definitely going to take a look at each segment and each field. So we are going to take a look at every important field. It's impossible to cover all the fields. So
Correct.
patient ID is a very good discussion. So we'll talk more about that at that point of time.
3 point X will be covered in this session.
Which
I
one?
mean, 3 point rim model. Is it will be it
No,
will
no, no, no. We are not going to look at version 3. It's only about version 2. The entire training is about version 2.
okay.
Okay. Any other questions from anyone? Okay, great. So, next we will take a look at the various types of message types, various types of segments, or basically event types that we have within HL7 messaging. All right, so let me go ahead and pull out our presentation. So in yesterday's session, I just gave you a gist of what is the basis on which HL7 messaging runs. So today we'll continue taking a look at that. So HL7 messaging is an event-driven messaging methodology, right? From yesterday, we saw this HL7 message, and but that message gets generated only when an event happens in the real-time world. So that was the main reason why I did take you through the hospital workflow session. So in our first session, we did take a look at the entire blueprint of the hospital workflow. That will act as our blueprint all through the training. Whenever we want to talk about any event, we'll be coming back to the workflow. So as an integration engineer, the first thing that you need to understand is understand the workflow in detail. That is the first point. Second thing is understanding the message flow direction. in which direction the message is going to flow. Okay, that is also very, very important. So we'll talk about that down the line. But as of now, the basis on which HL7 messaging is designed is that the actions that are happening in the real world, the uh, events that are happening in the real time world are requiring the data to be sent from one system to another. For example, patient walks into the hospital, gets himself registered at the appointment or the receptionist desk, right? As soon as the patient's data gets registered in the PM system, it has to be sent over to the EHR system. So that is a requirement. If the data is not sent to the EHR system, doctor will not be able to take a look at it. Meaning, doctor will not be able to see patient name. Doctor will not be able to understand what is who the patient is, why is he coming for, and anything as such. So the event that has happened in the front end to make this happen is patient registration event. Let's say patient has already walked into the hospital before and he is now walking in and asking them to change his phone number or email address or something as such. So that is also an event. Okay, they will capture the patient's phone number, update the phone number in their system and save the details. So one event concludes there. Patient registration, new patient registration is one event. Patient details getting updated is another event. Now after that, patient will go meet the doctor and there they may be taking some vitals, right? So vitals may be like checking the BP, checking the sugar, checking whether patient's height, weight, and various other things. So when they capture all of those vitals, they save that into the EHR system, right? And that is one event. Then patient talking to the doctor may be considered as another event, and doctor placing an order to perform some test can be considered as another event. In this way, from the moment when the patient enters into the hospital till he leaves, there are series of events that are happening. And when these events are happening, if an event if an event demands the data to be sent from one system to another, such kind of events are called as trigger events. Okay. So what do I mean by demanding the data flow to be sent from one system to another? When a patient gets registered, the data should be sent from PM to EHR, right? It is a compulsion. It has to be sent across so that the data can be seen in the EHR system. Doctor will know what is the name of the patient. Let's say appointment gets scheduled in the PM system. The data has to be sent from PM to EHR, or else doctor will not know what all appointments he has. Okay, so here also the that particular event is demanding the data to be sent from one system to another. So that is also a trigger event. Now let's take a look at an example where an event is not a trigger event. Now, when the patient walks into the hospital doctor's cabin, nurse will go ahead and first calculate all of his vitals. As soon as vitals are captured, they will go ahead and save all of those vital information in the EHR system, right? Is it necessary for these vitals to be sent to someone else? Not required, right? It's an event. They are capturing the data and saving it to the system. So an event is completed there. Capturing vitals event is completed there. But EHR is a final placeholder to hold that data. It doesn't need to send that information to anyone else, right? So that is not a trigger event. In this way, there will be series of events that will be happening right from the beginning till the end, till the patient leaves the hospital. And these events might be trigger events or might not be trigger events. What determines that? If an event data has to be sent across to another system, it is a trigger event. Okay. So patient getting admitted is a trigger event. Doctor placing an order is another trigger event. And HL7 messaging methodology is purely based on this factor that there are series of events that will happen and few of them are trigger events, and these trigger events will generate HL7 messages. Okay, because if it is a trigger event, then the data has to be sent across to another system. Okay, one more important point is HL7 message is always a reaction for an action that is happening in the real world. Okay, so these events Patient registration, it's an action that is happening. And once the action concludes, there will be an HL7 message that will be generated. Doctor places an order in the HR system, an action is completed, and a reaction is nothing but our HL7 message. So without something happening in the real world, there will be no HL7 message in existence. Okay. So let us look at as of now, we have understood that there are series of events that will be happening within the hospital. So let's categorize the hospital workflow into a few categories and understand how they are represented in terms of HL7. Okay, so someone has a question. Someone has a question. Did I miss on any question from anyone?
I have one question.
Yeah, Partha.
Yeah, the thing here is, suppose patient is means each EHR system. EHR is a centralized system where we need to update the each hospital, right? Or it's not required to update the information or to insert the information in EHR system.
Which information?
Suppose a patient admit to the patient visit to the hospital.
Hmm.
Uh, Doctor schedule an appointment. It's an event, so
Right.
that is registered in should be registered into the EHR system, right?
See, now if it is an EHR system, then obviously you will have a front-end PM system. So
Yes.
appointment will be scheduled in the PM system and that will be sent over to EHR. Doctor will not schedule any appointments.
Yeah, yeah,
Even
yeah. My point is that too only. The
hmm,
thing here need to anyway in the hospital, any of the system maybe should be interacted with the EHR system, right? For
correct,
every
correct,
action.
right.
Uh, what about that related to the EMR systems?
EMR, just you mean the plain EMR where they don't have any PM system or any other system, scheduling system?
They have a scheduling system as well, but they didn't update any EHR, right? They directly send that corresponding details to the corresponding system internally, right? They not updated any centralized system, right?
No,
You didn't.
no, I think I'm not following your question. So when you say EMR, are you saying that EMR doesn't interface with anything, any other PM system or any other source scheduling system? Or
Yes.
you are saying they are manually directly entering into the EMR system?
No, 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 no. First point, actually, first.
Okay, so if
Yes,
see if there is
I
lone
talked about.
EHR, yeah, if there is lone EHR which is not interfacing with anything or it is not integrated with any system, then there is no other go. They have to manually enter into that particular EMR system and say that uh, and then schedule the appointments within that or update the appointment information within that because it is not connected to any PM system. So there is no scope of HL7 in that particular scenario.
Okay, okay.
Okay, but if they are
Thank you.
placing, yeah, so it, if the data has to populate automatically, then it has to obviously interface with the PM system or any scheduling system, which can send the data to it so that manual addition or manual intervention can be avoided for appointments to be populated automatically.
Okay.
All right, so let us take a look at hospital workflow. So if you go and divide and just take a look at hospital as a at a bigger picture, you will have all the registrations being done. Then following the registrations, you will see that there will be appointment schedules that will be happening. And following that, you will also see that there are labs that will be generated. So first patient gets registered and has his appointment scheduled. And then after that, there will be labs that the doctor may place. And then after that, you will see that we have charges. Charges are nothing but the amount or the payment that the patient has to pay that will be generated. And then you will have pharmacy and insurance related events that will be happening within the hospital. So each of these are each of these data sets can be transacted in the form of HL7 messages, or each of these categories may have many more trigger events under each of these category, and each event can be transacted in the form of HL7 messages. Okay, so except for pharmacies and insurances, all the rest follow the HL7 standard. Pharmacies and insurances follow different standard. Pharmacies usually are done through electronic prescriptions. Insurances are done through X12, which is a different messaging standard altogether. Okay, so we'll be focusing mostly on these four aspects, where we'll be taking a look at what all events are involved in these four things, and what are the how do you read an HL7 message for these all events is what we are going to take a look at. So now this is in our general language, but in terms of HL7 or in HL7 language, it has its own name, it has its own representation. So let's take a look at what that is. So registrations, appointment, labs, and charges. So registrations are called as ADT. So this is the name of any registration message. So if you have an HL7 message, it will be represented with the message type, or sorry. So any HL7 message has this ADT in case if it is a registration related event that is happening. ADT stands for admit, discharge, and transfer. So there will be many events under registration. Patient might get admitted, patient might get discharged, patient might be transferred from one system to one location to another, or from one room to another, or from one bed to another. So all of these events are represented under one bucket called as ADT or registrations. Okay, registration is our normal language. ADT is HL7's language. Then you have appointments. Appointments are represented with a code called SIU. SIU stands for Scheduling Information Unsolicited. Okay, so any scheduling related event will be present or will be represented with the help of SIU. Similarly, you have ORM and ORU. ORM is observation request message, which is used for uh, or used to represent order data. ORU is observation result unsolicited, which is used to represent result data. Similarly, you have DFT, which is detailed financial transaction. Okay, so if you have events pertaining to finances or transactions, they will be represented with the help of DFT. Now the question is, where is this representation? How do I know? Where can I check? So if you go back to the HL7 message, let's go back to our HL7 message and see where we can find this. So this is our HL7 message. In HL7 message, in MSH segment, you can see that there is one field which is having this information. So here it says ADT. By looking at that ADT acronym, I will understand that I am dealing with a registration related event. Okay, there is something following through that, or there is a following statement called A04 there, which we'll talk about in a bit. But by looking at this ADT, we'll understand we are discussing about something that is related to admit, discharge, or transfer. So this event belongs to registration related event, or this data that you're seeing here has been generated as part of some sort of event that happened during registration. Okay, that's what we will understand. Now let us go ahead and explore a little bit more. When we go to the hospital, registrations might have many number of events under it. We are just taking one or two examples of patient registration and update patient information and so on. Right. Similarly, appointments will have events like new appointment, update of existing appointment, or deletion of existing appointment. Okay. When I say deletion, it doesn't mean that the data actually will be deleted from the system. When I say deletion, it's just that it is a soft delete, which means the data will still be there, but you will just cancel the appointment. You will never delete any data from the system. Usually in electronic health records or PM systems, the hospitals are not allowed to go ahead and delete anything once it is entered. They can go ahead and correct, they can go ahead and archive it, but it will not get deleted. So whenever an appointment is scheduled, in case if they have scheduled it incorrectly, they have to cancel that appointment. So when I say deletion, it means that it's a cancellation. Next, you have charges. So charges are nothing but represented with the help of charge information. And then you have labs. Labs will have two different events. They are called as orders and results. So for charges, there is only one event which will represent all the transactions, whereas labs will have two events. One is orders and the other one is results. Okay, so each of these categories that we saw here has different events under it. These are just few of the events. These are not all the events. Okay, we are just seeing only few of them, which are more frequently seen in the real-time world. Okay, now let us see how we can represent these events in terms of HL7 message. So we know that registration is represented as ADT based on our previous slide. And events that are present within these ADT are new patient registration or update patient information, right? So let us take a look at that. Oh, for some reason it's not coming up. Okay, yeah. So ADT has two events. One is new patient registration and another one is update of existing patient information, right? So these are represented with these event types called as A04 or A28. You can use either A04 or A28 for patient registration, or you can use A08 or A31 to represent update of existing patient information, right? So next you have SIU. SIU stands for scheduling information unsolicited, and the events that are part of SIU are basically S12, which will represent new appointment. S14 will represent modification of an existing appointment. Let's say patient has an appointment scheduled and he walks in. So the appointment will be checked in, representing, or basically it will represent modification of an existing appointment. So S14 will be triggered. Then you have cancellation, which is nothing but cancellation of an existing appointment. That will be represented with the help of S15. So whatever you are seeing here, this is called as message code, and this is called as trigger event. So SIU S12 is a message type, and when you look at SIU S12, you will clearly understand that the HL7 message that I am looking at is new appointment related message. Okay. Similarly, if you go back to our HL7 example that we were looking at,
Is there any specific reason that for ADT we have two events? So it will more create a confusion.
no, I mean, they have their own segregation. So we'll talk more about that when we start looking at ADT message type. Basically, A04 is used for outpatient registrations. A28 is used in general for all new patient registrations. So we'll talk about that segregation down the line. There are few systems who will use only A04. There are few systems who will use A28 based on whether it is an inpatient module, outpatient module, or a combined module.
Okay.
Okay, so I just wanted to show you that both of them are used. So that's the reason I am I represented both of them here. Uh, but we'll talk about how they are different in the upcoming session. Okay, so if you go back to our HL7 message example, you have ADT A04. This is where you will understand that this is a event that belongs to a new patient registration. If it is A08, then we will understand that it is update of existing patient information. Okay. If it is SIUS12, then we can understand that this entire HL7 message is for new patient appointment, new appointment that is scheduled. Okay, so just by looking at this data, we'll be able to tell what is the name or what is the name of the message, what event that particular message belongs to. Okay, so this is called as message type. So a message 9 is basically called as message type. And message type is a combination of message code plus trigger event. Okay, so this is message code and this is trigger event. All right. So if anyone asks us what is the name of the message you are dealing with, what is the HL7 message that you're dealing with, we just need to let them know what is present in a message 9. Okay, so let us look at other events as well. In DFT, there is only one event, which is called as PO3. In orders, ORM message, observation request message, there is one event called as O01. And similarly, you have ORU, which is observation request unsolicited, and it also has this results also has one event, which is called as R01. Okay, so these are very few of the many events that we have. There are more than 50 message types, more than 80 event types in HL7 HL7 version 2. So do we need to know all of them? Even I don't know all of them. Many people will not know all of them. All that we need to know are the most common ones, which we are seeing on the screen right now. These are the most frequently and commonly used. We'll also talk on once we look at all of these message types and understand the structures of each of these message types, then I will tell you what should be the thought process that we have to have in order to deal with new event type or new message type that you may encounter in your work. What process we have to follow, what approach we should have, what all things we need to look at when we encounter a new message type. Okay, if we know that, we can deal with any message that is going to come up or that may be introduced in your work, day-to-day work. Okay, so we'll conclude today's session here. We'll continue tomorrow. So from tomorrow only, the people who have enrolled in the sessions will be allowed. So I would recommend you guys to go ahead and reach out to Srinivas. His contact information is present in the chat. Please pick it up and reach out to him, and he will send you the new link that is needed for you guys to join. Okay, so I'll open up for any questions. Any questions from anyone?
Please, how do you get the material for the classes? We haven't gotten the emails yet.
I'm sorry, which emails?
Email for the materials for these classes, like the
Right, right. So once you enroll in the session, Srinivas will create a Google Drive maybe tomorrow or day after, and he's going to upload all the video recordings as well as the materials into that Google Drive. So you will have access to that.
Okay, thank you.
Yep, no problem.
The thing here is actually when we
Partha, your voice is muffled. I am not hearing what you're asking.
are you able to listen my voice?
No, there is huge breakout.
I hit it is. Can I
Srinivas, have
ask
you
you?
Yeah, Mohit, you go ahead. Partha, you may have to join back again, or you can type your question in the chat.
yeah,
Anything is
sure.
fine.
Yeah, I'm moreover interested in HL7 certification. Can you give me
Uh-huh.
some detail about that?
Yeah, so regarding the certification, you will have to go through 3 chapters, chapter 2, chapter 2A, and chapter 2B. So whatever we are going to cover through the training will cover most part, 70 to 75% of the chapter A, chapter 2. And chapter 2A is all about data types. So we will be talking, there are 90 data types in HL7 version 2.8. Okay, out of that we'll be completing around 30, 35. Rest is Rest is you have to prepare if you're preparing for certification. So you'll get an idea what data types are, how to read them, how to understand them, and all, so that you will be able to prepare for rest of them. Next is chapter 2B. So chapter 2B, I'll be covering few important topics that are necessary for certification on chapter 2B, which you can go ahead and prepare for rest of the entire chapter.
So these chapters are in somewhere in the guideline or where?
Yes, we have documents. I'll be sharing that with you through the drive itself. So you can also download it from HL7 website, register yourself in HL7 website, and you can go ahead and download the material from there. Entire specification from there, basically.
Okay, okay, got it. And what is the fees for that certification?
$329 for non-members. I think $100 less for members.
Thank you.
Yeah. So Partha is asking, Mirth Connect will process huge data into database. They will send a particular interval will send continuous information. Is that a performance issue? So are you saying we do send the data in particular interval because it will be a performance problem, Partha? Is that what your question is? Okay. I mean, the integration engines are designed to go ahead and pull the data from database in certain intervals only. This interval can be as low as 1 second to as high as whatever, once in a month, once in 15 days, once in 2 weeks. So whatever you want to set it as. The reason why we have it that way is we cannot go ahead and, I mean, it is a checkpoint methodology on how you go ahead and pull out the data from database, right? You cannot go ahead and keep writing the data continuously, or you can, so are you talking about exports or imports? Exporting the data out of the system or importing the data into the system? Imports. Okay. So when you are importing the data, then you can write it continuously. That's not a problem. In case if you have the capacity, if the integration engine can handle the data that is going to come in, if you have that memory space allocated sufficiently, you can write the data continuously. That shouldn't be a problem. And I have seen projects where they write the data continuously. All right. Any other question from anyone?
Dixon, actually, when we enroll this course, when I actually currently am working with Mud Connect as well.
Mm-hmm.
So I have questions parallelly with the real-time scenarios. Is it possible to cover those things as well?
Questions parallelly? I
Parallel
missed it.
means, I will tell you. Once done this all the courses,
Uh-huh.
so we have a questions in my real-time experience.
Your Parda, I am unable to hear you.
Yeah, actually, is it possible to help me on that area? Suppose, as of now, I'm handling the AT messages using Mud
Uh-huh.
Connect.
Uh-huh.
Right now, I'm listening the continuous messages from the Mirth Connect, and
Uh-huh.
Hughes having the performance issue. Even
Uh-huh.
I use the transformers filters and everything. Even I'm not using any licensed version. I'm using a Mirth Connect old version.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean this open license. So open source. Even though getting the performance issues, so is it possible to identify my mistakes after the complete this course? Just help on that. I need some help on that.
I can suggest you on what can be done in case
Yeah,
if
yeah,
I can
suggest.
get a, yeah, I can suggest you
Yes,
on what
suggest.
can be done.
I can do.
Uh,
Yeah, I can do everything. The thing is performance issue, and actually sometimes messages are in queues actually. So such kind of issue.
Yeah, I can suggest you on what can be done. Once you complete, so queuing and all, we'll talk about queuing as well when we actually implement the interface or when we are actually going to practically uh, develop a channel. So we'll talk more about queuing at that point. But yeah, I can suggest you on how you can solve certain problem. Definitely.
Hello,
Hello. Yeah,
sir.
Narendra.
This is Narendra.
Yeah.
Sir, I done MBA in hospital administration.
Mm-hmm.
Am I eligible for HL7 roles, sir?
Yeah. Yeah, you can definitely if you can get into business analyst role, product owner role for HL7. So yes, you can definitely go ahead and have that as a career opportunity.
So, HL7 integration or HL7 interface developer, like.
So it depends on, so there are many different roles. Okay. As an HL7 analyst, you can go ahead and become, as I said, business analyst who will not do any developments. If you are interested in core development, you can learn the development part, which will be seeing through the training, and you can become an HL7 developer as well. So it depends on you which particular area you want to get into. But the training that we are going to go through will cover both the aspects.
Sure, sir.
You will be talking about specifications, how do you read fields and all. And also how do you develop interfaces from scratch will be covered.
Okay, sir. Can I know career job opportunities related to this code, sir?
Yeah, so it's the same thing. It's you will be working as a business analyst, or you'll be working as an interface developer, or you'll be working as integration implementation lead or implementation specialist, where you'll be implementing an interface which is developed by someone else or developed by a group of developers. Okay, so these are the three different areas that you will get jobs into. Okay.
Excel CDA will cover in this course clinical
No,
document.
no, we will not cover CDA.
Okay.
Okay.
Sir, which companies had HL7 roles, sir?
Sorry, I didn't get your question. Which company?
Which companies hired HL7 roles, sir?
There are big companies. So I think yesterday I specified that Deloitte, you have Infosys, you have HCL, you have Cognizant, Accenture, IBM, Microsoft. All of these companies hire HL7 implementation or HL7 resources. Okay, and there are many more small companies as well. I am just naming you the well-known names.
Sure, sir.
Okay, all right. So we'll conclude today's session here. We'll connect tomorrow morning for the follow-up session, which is session 3. So please reach out to Srinivas to enroll yourself and continue the training. Okay, thanks everyone.
Hello.